Hello and welcome to today's Mindset video. I'm super excited. I've got Miguel here from Capchase, CEO of Capchase. Miguel, thank you for joining. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what you do and how we kind of got together as partners here.
Thank you, Daniel. It's great to be here. Yeah.
So let's start off with what is Capchase and kind of what do you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So basically, what we're doing at Capchase is we're helping founders to automate everything that touches a dollar, right? So, things that touch a dollar in a fast growing startup, if you do them extremely well, nothing happens. If you don't do them extremely well, you can kill it, right?
Okay.
So we want to help founders to just automate all of that, so it doesn't take the time. They can focus on what really matters, which is building a product and then selling the product.
Right.
We want everything that touches a dollar to be automated in Capchase. So we aren't automating yet everything because we have only
Step by step.
started a year and a half ago, right? But we have started with automating financing. So the way that companies raise money, specifically non-dilutive capital, right? So
Okay.
we're trying to help founders to grow faster than ever, but instead of using VC money or their cash reserves to grow, we are helping them to use their future revenues. So everything that's gonna get paid by your customers in the future, instead of waiting for it, with Capchase, you can access that ahead of time and reinvest it into growth. So to give you an example, let's say a company with $1 million in ARR, they know they're gonna get $1 million in payments over the following 12 months.
Right.
So instead of waiting for those 12 months to get the money through the door, they can take part of that now through Capchase. They invest it into growth, and then the ARR goes from 1 to 1.2. They can do the same process again and again and again and again, and it's kind of like a growth flywheel that helps these founders grow faster without necessarily having to, spend their cash in it.
Got it. So it's already very differently structured than bringing in an investor who's going to dilute, right, equity, and because you're kind of taking, if I understand correctly, you're taking the future revenue that would be coming in, rather than the revenue that's already, or rather than kind of the equity of the company that has already been established.
Exactly. So that's one massive advantage for founders, that they don't have to sell their company to get funds to then grow the company, right? So they can grow faster with the future revenues. And the other thing is that it's programmatic, right? Like you don't need to spend time, fundraising every 6-12 months, spending a ton of time opening your books to everybody. With Capchase, as the company grows, so does your cash availability. So you don't have to go and raise again. So imagine, telling a very graphic story. It may be a little bit silly, but fundraising would be equivalent to doing a road trip, and every time you need to fill up the gas tank, you need to drill a well in the ground. You need to stop for 3 days, get the the petrol, and then
put it in the machine and drill through it and then pull it out. Right.
And Capchase is just
going to the gas station.
The tank gets refilled the more miles you get, basically. So it's almost like automatic, and it allows founders to just focus on growing the business and building products, shipping product, and then the financing is taken care of.
Very interesting. I always love an analogy to help kind of clear up the story. So, I mean, how did you get into this space? I mean, this is not necessarily something that most people are familiar with. I mean, even if you're in, the business, in an entrepreneurship business, and you're looking for funding, I mean, how did you kind of come about this business model?
Yeah. So, I was, when we first had the idea of Capchase, I was studying at HBS. I was doing an MBA at Harvard Business School. So we had a lot of time to think, but we were focusing on the intersection between B2B SaaS and FinTech, because before that, I had been 3 years scaling a SaaS company from 0 to a few million ARR. And this is exactly the product that I wish we would have been able to have. We're growing this company from 0 to a few million ARR again over 3 years. I was running sales, success, and international. And in every single conversation with customers, it was always, a conflict where we wanted to get paid up front because we wanted to use that cash to reinvest it into growth and not tap into VC money, but customers didn't want to, right? Or so then, it was really tough. We had to give them large discounts for them to pay up front. Sometimes they would just not even do it. So then that meant that we had to, in a SaaS business, it, right? You have a big CAC. You burn money and then you start getting paid by the customer.
Exactly. That it's long term rather than right away. Yeah.
Exactly. So that gap between your investment and when you get the money back has to come from somewhere, right? So we will had to use VC money for that. So at some point in the previous company, so at some point, we just had to raise a round to keep growing as fast. So that's exactly what's made us think, hey, there has to be a way in which SaaS companies can, use their future revenues instead of their equity to grow.
Yeah, I think there's two major aspects that we were super excited about when we heard about Capchase. One is the lack of dilution, right? Not being diluted as a business is extremely important. You've put your heart and you poured your soul into building and getting to where you are, and now all of a sudden you want to grow, times 2, times 3, times 4. You now have someone who comes in and says, "Well, I'm going to take X amount of the work I haven't done," and I thought that was one. And the second was the model that you just explained. I don't think people understand how impactful it is to have this kind of unlimited, I guess, financial stability plus the ability to grow. Because now that we were in a position with SetSchedule where we've had the revenue coming in, we've hit that benchmark of the financial stability yearly, and now we want to be able to not only dump it into more development, which Miguel, how expensive and how much resources that requires, right? But it wasn't like we said, "Hey, we need 5 million and then we'll be good," right? That's just the starting point. And with Capchase, I think it's awesome that you're able to kind of continue. Both partners are growing together. As SetSchedule grow, Capchase is growing with us because the funds are coming and being moved back and forth. And I thought that was awesome. Dilution is something that you talk about quite a lot. Why was it so important when you set up a business model that you weren't diluting, the company that you've partnered with?
Well, as a founder myself, it's really painful, when you have to sell part of the company to grow. I mean, the exchange, of course, you're selling part of the business to get funds and partners, that will make all that growth journey easier. But still, if you think about it, the average funding team has around 15% of the company at exit, right? That means that the other 85% is owned by somebody else, right?
That's huge. Wow.
Exactly. It's founders working 24/7, on a business for years, for 5, 7, 10 years. And then at the end, they only have 15%, right? So
yeah,
that's one data point. Like, dilution is super painful. And then two is SaaS businesses are extremely predictable, right? So if every dollar that you invest in growth, what that's going to turn into in terms of ARR and for how long, right? Then you can start to understand, hey, like, where can we find these funds, right? Like, does it always have to be VC money or not, right? So then that was another important thing. And then last of all is VC money. People tend to think that it's free, right? Like when people compare, I'm going to use equity. Well, like, I mean, you're selling part of the business, but you're not paying an interest, right? So people think about it like, oh, wait, so I can use either equity money or I can use, non-dilutive capital, which has a cost, right? It has a cost and it has a few percentage points, right? So people tend to think that it's free, but if you think about it, the cost of capital of equity is extremely high. Let's say that you sell 10% of your business for $1 million, right? So then you say, okay, so my business now is worth $10 million. Then a year from now, if you wanted to buy back that 10% of the business, how much would it cost you, right? Because if you grow quickly, maybe the business is now worth
20 million. Yeah, you've just diluted by 1/10 right there. Yeah,
exactly. So if you were to buy back that 10%, it would cost you, if the company is worth
$10 million
a year, yeah, exactly, right? So then the cost of capital, if you think about it, in this case, it's 1,000%. So then when you start thinking about cost of capital, about so using equity to grow is going to cost me 1,000% cost of capital, right? And using Capchase is going to cost me like a couple of percentage points, a few percentage points. Then the cost of dilution becomes much easier to understand, right? It's not ownership, it's not loss of ownership only, but also the financial cost of using that capital.
I've never thought about it that way, and I guess that's part of. I'm sure that the those who were involved in this had thought about it, and that's something that you don't really spend time to think about. If you were to make that $1 million investment, and now instead of $10 million valuation, you're at 100. Being able to take your equity back is now costing you 10 times, and that's something that does bring up a kind of an aha moment, I guess, in my eyes just now, where you want to avoid that. A lot of business owners don't think that and don't realize that. So, how do you decide, Miguel, who is a good fit? What does a perfect, I guess, partner for Capchase look like?
Yeah. So, it's companies that have a heavy tech component and that have recurring revenues. That's kind of like the industry in which we play. We have decided to stay very focused on the industry and then add them a lot of value, with different tools and automating more of the tech stack, than go to every single company out there, which would have to have like a very generic product. So then what makes like a Capchase a perfect fit for somebody, is when you have recurring revenues, you have like more or less predictable unit economics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're growing, more than, like around 20% year over year.
Year over
That's
year. Okay.
when the power of Capchase can really compound the effect that these companies have, on their growth. So yeah, we have thousands of customers, and what we see in general is that companies that are growing, let's say on average, the company that comes to work with Capchase has around a 5% monthly growth. So
Okay.
5% month over month. And then after working with Capchase, after deploying Capchase, that growth rate goes on average around 53%. So goes above
Wow.
7% month over month, which is like a big improvement. And then, as they grow faster, they deploy more money, but without spending their VC money as much.
It just seems like this kind of upward spiral of financial growth. Being able to take in more money allows you to put those resources into growing and obviously finding more ways of bringing in revenue. And now you've got this spiral of Capchase providing more money and this never ending. So what is a kind of a fund, I guess, a fund cycle look like with Capchase? What are some of the steps that if I were interested in, coming to Capchase and saying, I want to start to partner with you, what does that cycle look like?
Yeah. So let's say that, let's assume that we don't know each other, and you come to the website
Hi, nice to meet you.
after this webinar, right? So then you would just connect your data via API. So it's 3 clicks, just as easy as, logging into Facebook 3 times, right? Like click, click, click. And then you connect the stuff. And then all that data gets crunched for our systems, you get underwritten. And then you would get you would get back what's your cap score, right? So how are you, ranking, and then
Okay.
what percentage of your ARR you can access at any given time.
So I'm sorry, I want to interrupt you. You said ARR a couple of times, and I want to make sure everybody's understand as far as the annual revenue. What does that mean to someone who doesn't understand ARR? What does that term mean?
Yeah, it's annual recurring revenue, right? So it's the total amount of the payments that you expect from a customer over the following 12 months from your customer base, right? So imagine if you have a customer paying you $1 a month, that's $12 of ARR.
Perfect.
If they're paying you $12 a year, is the same, $12 of ARR. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, so let's say you connect your data, 24 hours later, you get your information back, and then you know what percentage of your annual recurring revenue you can tap into at any given time. And then, what happens is that, let's say that you decide to say, okay, so I want to access, let's say, $1 million, 20% of my ARR, or a $5 million business, whatever. Then you sign the papers online, it's everything automatic, everything that's a bank would make you do, there's none of that. Everything is automatic, super easy.
No paperwork, no signing signatures and documents and stuff like that.
As fast as, like 24 hours after that, so 48 hours since the beginning, you can get the money in the bank. And then what happens is that you have a person from Capchase internally assigned to you as like a growth advisor that is going to work with you to plan ahead.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So then you can know when is going to be the right time to draw again, or, hey, I'm going to do this big acquisition. I'm going to acquire a company. I would like to fund that acquisition, with Capchase funds. So then they can work together on that, and like the availability of funding just gets updated as the company grows. So, it's not like you have to come back and do the full process again. It sort of like gets updated.
Well, it seems like a very simple and efficient way to get funding if you're looking to kind of go that route. When would you not necessarily recommend someone to work with Capchase, and you would recommend them to go to like a standard funding? What would be the difference between someone that you would that you would recommend for this and not?
Right. So I think that on the one hand, companies that have no revenues, that just have an idea, they need to get revenues, right, before they can start using Capchase. So in those cases, like for sure, VC funding is probably like
Better way to go, right?
supposed to just like bootstrapping or anything, right? So that's a big case. And then companies that are not growing or that don't have the unit economics figured out, then maybe like there's a way in which they can raise from somebody else, before they can get the house in order and start working with Capchase. Yeah.
Got it. So technology is obviously huge, and I'm assuming that's the reason why we've gone into the automations, and that really simplifies the process for not only Capchase, but more importantly for us. I mean, with SetSchedule, everything is in done through technology. As a software company, we try to use software as ourselves internally, right? How important is that automation for Capchase, and is that kind of the defining factor that led you to only want to work with maybe soft SaaS companies?
Well, automation is really important. It's really important for standardization of data. It's important for operations and for processes, right? So, and it's also like, as you said, the most important thing is that it's important for people like you, right? For the users, because
Yes, yeah,
people
absolutely.
really I don't want to get distracted fundraising. I want to focus on the business, right? I want to focus on the business. I want to understand what works, what doesn't, and work on that. I don't want to just like spend all my time just fundraising and getting money, right? So automation enables a very, annoying, drawn out process to happen immediately, right? And
Yes.
without automation, it would just be more difficult for everybody, for us, for the customers, for as they grow again, for re-underwritings. And yeah, that's why we spent a lot of time thinking about how to automate things in a more thoughtful and better way.
So speaking of automation, you actually just partnered with AWS Activate console, and I think that that's super awesome because that seems to me, that you're taking things to a level that maybe other investment firms. And is it fair to call you an investment firm? How would you define what Capchase is, by the way?
We define ourselves as a fintech because we're
Fintech,
not just doing
financial
we're
tech
not just
company.
doing exactly yeah, we're not just doing financing, we're also helping business with the data, with the growth and so on. So it's more like a fintech, and definitely not an investment firm because we're not taking any equity stakes, right? We're
Fair
not
enough.
investing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah, you said it right. Like we had a partnership with AWS, and I think that the mission is to help founders at the earlier stages. They give them credits and they give them other tools and they help them with webinars and lessons and so on. So it was great to partner together because we want founders to grow as well, as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. So then it was a very natural alignment in both of our missions. And then, funnily enough, there are a ton of customers that are using Capchase to pay for the AWS invoices. Right. So instead of paying AWS on a monthly basis, yeah, they negotiate an upfront payment. Say, okay, I'm going to use these dedicated instances for the full year. They get a massive discount for an upfront payment, and for AWS is great because they're no churn guaranteed for the next 12 months. They're going to stay around. And then what the founders do is once they've negotiated a discount for paying upfront, then they pay with Capchase and they pay monthly back to Capchase. So they get the best of both worlds. They get monthly flexibility and reduced pricing.
Wow. So there seems to be so much value in not only with Capchase, but the fact that you guys have. So what are maybe some future, systems or frameworks that you might be implementing that would kind of add additional value to somebody who's looking to work with Capchase?
So we are working with multiple founders on many different ways, right? So let me tell you a couple. So founders, when you said it right, like sometimes they come to Capchase, they cannot work with us, or even once they're working with Capchase, at some point they need to raise money again because whatever, they're going to do something that they're unsure of the returns, so they need to raise money, either enter a new geography or build new products, and so on, and they want to raise another round. So what they're telling us to do, which is really interesting, is we have their data in a very structured way, right? And we know, what kind of how they rank against other SaaS companies. So we're helping them, with that, like providing them this data back to them, so they know how they're ranking against other businesses. They know which metrics to focus on, and then they can go with that underwriting and that data, and then go and look for other sources of funding, right? They can go and get, I don't know, like some other funding offer or raise some VC money. So that's one thing. And then on the other hand, we're helping them with expense financing, where they have big expenses coming up. It can be sales bonuses, it can be AWS invoices, it can be cloud infrastructure, software, whatever. They can pay with Capchase, and instead of them paying with the cash and parting with the cash up front, they can split that cash into monthly installments.
So that's an interesting concept. Um, how are ways that, I mean, being so out of the standard, financial kind of I guess institution, how do you innovate for all this new tech? What do you how do you I mean, it seems so different than anything anybody has ever done. So how do you as a I guess the CEO of Capchase start to innovate for new ways of adding value to your partners?
Yeah, so we just talk with people like you all the time, right? So just understanding what are the pains, and where are they struggling, and then we're trying to understand the problems really well. Then we try to understand what's the real pain. So how are they solving things now? What are the pains, associated with those current solutions? And then we try to work with them to find out what 10x better solution we can do. And then, it's okay. So if we were to do that solution, what kind of value are we creating for the business, right? For you guys, right? Like what kind of value? Is it less dilution? Is it, accelerated growth? Is it more visibility on the metrics? Is it, just like a better way of operating? And then, it's like almost like a very conversational process with founders, where they tell us about the current problems. We try to think about how we could solve those problems in a more efficient way and about the value that we will create for these people. And then we have an amazing team just that turns those into reality.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship that we have with Capchase actually was, I guess, the foundation of where us coming out with the new 3.0 application. It really allowed us to take all the resources that we needed, and the team itself was super friendly. So you kind of touched on the account executive. Is it fair to call them an account executive after they come on board? They helped with an extreme amount of mentorship. What are some ways that you kind of, I guess, promote, for a maybe a partner? What are ways that you kind of help them grow with their business model and kind of help them get to the next level outside of just the financing that you provide them?
Right. So, for us to be able to work with a business, we need to run through all the data and understand what's going to happen in the future, right? So that information, it's not trivial to achieve, right? And founders usually have trouble trying to understand what's going to happen with the business in the future. So then what we do is we help the companies we work with to understand, first of all, what the real, metrics, unit economics are, and then what the effect that those unit economics have in the future, right? So we want to always forecast and be able to predict both how the top line is growing, how the revenue is growing, and then how the cash balance is evolving and will evolve in the future. And then we work with founders to help them understand, hey, what happens if, growth goes from 4% per month to 4.5% per month? What does that mean for your cash balance? Does it grow? Does it decrease because you're burning more money? And then what happens in the future? And then what happens if you take money from Capchase? How much money should you be taking? Should you be taking 100K? Should you be taking 500K? And what's the effect that that's going to have on the cash position of the business? And what kind of growth is it going to enable? So it's about understanding the data really, really well and working with them to help them predict what's going to happen in the future based on the data, on the trajectory, and on, availability of funds, etc.
So it sounds like this is a lot of data that a CEO or a business should be doing on their own. How often do you find businesses that come to you that don't have this data or, aren't familiar with it?
All the time. So it's really, really, really hard to do that, right? So scenario planning and forecasting is super complex. And in fact, it's almost like an impossible task to do if you only have one data set, right? If you only have your data of one company, of your company, is really tough. But we're working with thousands of companies, right? So we have very sophisticated machine learning, methods, algorithms that can help to, learn from not only the patterns of one business, but from the patterns of thousands of businesses of what happens if, and then with that, we can really help founders to understand it better.
So can you share some of maybe the patterns or the frameworks that you've put together that allows you to really spend the time to analyze the way that you do?
Well, I mean, I can get into technical aspects of it
Of
Of
because
course.
course.
I'm
Of
not the
course.
most technical person. But yeah, for example, like let's see, one interesting thing to do is, um, every business has a plan, right? Like they know what they want to do and what they expect to do, right? But then, that plan by definition is almost impossible to hit in every single metric, right? Because, sometimes you hit this metric, but then you don't hit this other metric or whatever, right? So what Capchase is doing is looking at a company as a whole, and looking at all the individual granular metrics. How does that, build into the revenue growth, and then, like after revenue growth, like if you apply if you are able to predict, the different cost lines of the business, then you can get
Okay.
down to, and the timing of those, you can get down to what the cash looks like at any given time, right? So that's what we're trying to do. I mean, we're using, I don't know, man, like a lot of now lingo is coming to my mind, like random forest analysis, and multi-series analysis and a bunch of different things, but to try to predict that better. But essentially, it's just learning from, patterns across many multiple companies, and also learning about the sensitivity, that a change in a metric has overall in the whole company.
Cool. Personal question. What's your passion, Miguel? What is it that gets you fired up and so excited about what it is that you do?
I really like, since, I mean, a long time ago, since I was little, I really like to see things grow, and to see tangible progress. So
The progression of growth.
yeah, exactly. I love, for example, at work, I love working with businesses, and as they grow, and as you see, like founders turning ideas and dreams into real projects, multiple people in the team, and creating value for their customers. That's like gets me fired up. Also, if we bring it one step closer with Capchase, the same, right? We started a year and a half ago, and now, we're working with thousands of businesses. We've made available billions of dollars. We have 100 people plus in the team, like growing like crazy. That also gets me fired up. And then like trying to understand, the problems that we're gonna face in the future and how to anticipate them. And then on a personal level, I really like just like things that grow as well. Either endurance sports, where you can
Second by second by second, every second in endurance sports is what. Yeah. Okay, I hear you.
and you see like every week you run a little bit faster, or you cycle a little longer, or more power output, and so on. And then I don't know, things like I love having plants, because like they're also like growing a little by little.
I was gonna ask if you have a green thumb because of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about, seeing growth and seeing tangible progress all around.
That's awesome. I think there's such an overlap between the passion that you have for your personal life and the passion that you have with what you do professionally, and the growth that we've sustained thanks to the financials that we've gotten through Capchase, and has also been an exciting path for us because we are seeing the constant growth that's coming with coming out with the new application, and now going from our 35,000 users to being able to being limited by 2 million to now having this ability to be an unlimited number of users, and seeing every single day. It's funny because the CEO Roy, who every single day he's checking how many more users we have, and that's another excitement level of his, through whether it's done through the marketing, or just the profit margin of sales. That is something that I think for a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, that is kind of something that gets them excited and gets them going in the morning. So very interesting, very interesting. As far as your background, you touched on it very briefly. You do have a degree from Harvard Business. How much of an overlap was there from what you learned to what at Harvard to what you're doing now?
Yeah. Funny story. Actually, I never graduated from Harvard Business School, so
Okay.
we dropped out to focus on Capchase. And imagine my mom when I told her. You're like, what's going on? Like, why are you leaving Harvard? I'm like, sorry, mom, I have to do this, But
by the way, I have a similar story, not with Harvard, but I ended up dropping out of undergrad to start SetSchedule, and my mother's reaction was the same, but I guess we both worked out for both of us at the end.
Exactly. I mean, now of course. That's hilarious. I didn't know that you had done this as well. So before that, I studied engineering. So I did mechanical and nuclear engineering in Madrid and Munich. Yeah. So I never worked as an engineer, but what I got is like that, mindset of breaking a very complex problem into steps, an experimentation mindset, that just gets you to the next step. It's not going to take you all the way, but like, what experiments do you need to do to learn about this enough to move one step, and then again and again and again, right? So that's I got. And then at Harvard Business School, which was amazing, it was a lot about how to apply different frameworks to different situations, and like it's all case methods, so you are like putting yourself in the shoes of a person that's gone through a problem hundreds of times. So that also like builds some muscle where you have to understand about like all the possible implications of an action and not just the very direct consequences that you can see. So it's like very different education systems. And I think that, I don't know, man, I just like that coupled with reading and so on, it really compounds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of I've always said it. It's school is important because I think it gets that part of your brain to think that you don't normally use if you're not sitting there and studying and memorizing a lot of the formulas and all that. The topics that you don't ever really use. You don't necessarily always use, but if you're able to use that in your business, and I think that taking some idea that you have and pushing it to the limit of your own limit and then breaking through that is something that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, I think, tend to kind of get stuck at. They always think there's this glass wall, and it's really important that you break through those glass walls, because that's what allows you to, like yourself, kind of come up with a whole new business plan that nobody has ever thought of, and nobody really. Again, I don't think I've ever seen anybody like Capchase out there. I'm sure there are people who try to mimic what you do, or maybe who have come out and failed. But from my understanding, you're the first one to really come out with this kind of business model that's been successful. So kudos to you. I'm excited to see what comes with Capchase, because I do think you guys are really starting to put yourselves on the map out there. So that's awesome to see.
Thank you, man. Like, we're happy to help anybody that you think that we should be working with, of course.
So how does someone get in touch with you? Or not necessarily you, but with Capchase. I mean, people are hopefully watching this and saying, well, maybe I'm at that stage where I don't want to go to a VC. I don't want to get diluted. And this is maybe something I'm interested in learning about, or starting to position myself in a way where I can start to take advantage of Capchase. How do I start? Where do I go?
Just go to our website, capchase.com. So CAPCHASE.com, like in my image up here, or just send me an email, Miguel@capchase.com. Miguel is MIGUEL @capchase.com, and yeah, I make sure that we pay the most attention to those companies that come referred by SetSchedule.
Awesome. Any advice for a new entrepreneur who's looking to scale? I mean, you've probably spoken to thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of businesses. What advice can you give someone who's really getting to the position where they've got their business model, they've got a good revenue stream, they're starting to put an entire team to be able to take it to the next level? What advice can you give someone?
I would say that there are two things, right? And I tell that all the time to my team as well. There is, on the one hand, like, never lose the urgency and never lose the experimentation mindset, right? So what I mean by that is, once you get some revenue and once you get some success and once, that things start to work out, it's very easy to then think that you are somehow like a more serious business and you have to do things in a different way,
Right.
and then like some companies lose urgency, right? They're like, okay, so we're going to do this thing, we're going to do it 6 months from now. And then you start to get into, like, measure monthly progress instead of daily progress, like at the beginning, right? So that is like a thing that can slow down a company. And once you slow down in startup land, if you step off the gas, you're not exactly, you step off the gas, you're not just like going slower, you're going backwards, right? So you have to keep the urgency, and try to measure daily progress or weekly progress. Just keep going all the time. Just focusing on the 1% improvement.
I love that.
Right. The second thing is the experimentation mindset. It's very similar, but like, instead of focusing on launching, products that you think the customer needs, and then building a massive product that you have behind the scenes, and then you bring out after 3 months or 6 months of development, I would encourage people to always focus on talking with customers and understanding the problems really well. And then how can you solve the problem, even if it's like manually, right? And then you can build the product afterwards. But always like find the experimentation mindset, understand what do you need to do to prove the next hypothesis, and then the next and the next and the next. And that leads to a very, compounding product development style as well, that just, keeps companies delighted because they constantly see progress, they feel heard, and then, they stay around forever.
It's so interesting that you spoke on those two things. So here at SetSchedule, our mindset is we're still a startup. We still work like a startup, even though we're technically now a small, medium-sized business. We've been in business for 7 years. Every day, it's if you're not working, thinking like a startup, you're not pushing yourself to the point where you are making those growths. And I love the 1% rule. So actually, growing up, Miguel, my mom instilled this 1% rule on us, where it's, look, you're gonna fail, you're gonna make mistakes, and that's perfectly okay. But as long as you are 1% better today than you were yesterday, after 100 days, you're 100% better, and after a whole year, that's 365% being better. So I love that, and the second part of it is really being able to engage with your consumers and speak to them. We just started a lot of user testing on our side, and I think that that's been something that has really helped us understand a lot of the improvement points that we can be making as a business. So those two advice points, I think, are something that are extremely impactful for a business. So I love to hear that. I love to hear that. Yeah, I mean, I think most entrepreneurs who are in that startup phase, who have made it to the point where we've made it, and we're getting there even every single day more and more. I do think that the mindset needs to be very similar. I mean, it's a grind. You wake up every morning. You wake up early because you've got stuff on your mind, and all you're thinking is, how do I get my business to the next level? What can I do to improve? What are ways that what are products that I can create that allow me to bring a solution for a problem that my users have? And I do think there's a very, very strong parallel between a lot of entrepreneurs who are in the position that we are in. So it makes sense. Hence the mindset podcast that we do. It's all about the mindset and waking up in the morning and saying, how do I be the best version of myself? And what can I do to make sure that, nobody's putting me down and slowing me down, because there are enough problems that you have to deal with. Nothing needs to come from yourself. Anyways, what's next for Capchase? I mean, where do you see Capchase in the next 6 months and year? I mean, what happens next?
Well, it's just like trying to hold on to the massive growth that we're experiencing and just like keep getting better as a business and almost like build the plane as we're flying it, right? So the way we're thinking about it is, this is the year probably that we will start launching other products that have nothing to do with financing. So
Okay.
probably around this like metrics and analytics and predictive modeling.
Okay.
Because something that a bunch of people are asking for. And then also, potentially something around helping businesses to manage the revenues in a more like easy, visible way. So they can see all the revenue flow and automate that as well, as much as the financing. So that's something that we're exploring right now. We're also, we just launched actually an API that, companies can use to offer Capchase as a service to their customers. So
Oh, wow.
we're working with banks, with fintechs, with some vertical SaaS, so they can offer Capchase monitoring, servicing, and underwriting, and funds if they want to as a service. So yeah.
That's sounds like you've got a lot going on, and every strong business needs to have to do that. So kudos to you. I think that's exciting to hear. I love hearing whenever you've got a partner who's taking things and repositioning themselves in a way that they can constantly grow. I mean, it's obviously part of, we talked about the mindset, and it's part of the startup business. So great. Miguel, any final words for anybody listening to this? I mean, we have a lot of small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs who are on our platform, and really they're leveraging SetSchedule to kind of find new connections and ways to grow their business. Any final words for those who are going to be listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, finding a business and growing a business is, as you said, it's it's like a grind, right? And then you can go across totally wildly different mind spaces across the same day. Like, oh, we're gonna make it really big, and then oh no, we're gonna die tomorrow, and then happens all the time. And then after a while, everything is a challenge, right? So I see a lot of founders that are like emotionally drained because they're dealing with very different mind states all the time, and then the team, well, you're dealing with people all the time, so then people always have challenges or problems or aspirations that you need to coordinate, and that can be emotionally draining, and like make people like almost like they cannot relate outside of anything that's not work. So yeah, I would suggest that it is like a marathon, with some urgency, but it's not a sprint 24/7, right? So it's like try to find something, outside of work that you can, combine and like decompress a little bit. I don't know. Some people read, some people do sports. Yeah. Whatever.
So what is it that you do?
I do a lot of sports, and then I also like to read a lot. Yeah, I don't really watch TV or anything like that. I don't know. Like I try to read at least. It to me is more stimulating. Yeah.
Any books you recommend for anybody listening?
So I'm reading now actually one that really speaks to heart. It's actually related with entrepreneurship. It's called the High Growth Handbook from Elad Gil, who was the VP of Growth at Twitter, I think. And it's fascinating because everything that he writes in the book, I can relate to. It's almost like as if
you
were
wrote it
exactly
yourself.
the words that I was needing to hear. Yeah, but it's fascinating.
Awesome. Well, Miguel, thank you so much for joining me. I mean, this was a fascinating conversation. I think there was a lot for viewers to listen to and to gain from. Again, CEO of Capchase. For those looking to go for a different route than your standard VC, dilution finances, Capchase, CAPCHASE. And then you said your email again was miguel@capchase.com, correct? Awesome. Well, Miguel, thank you again for joining us on The Mindset. I appreciate your time so much, and I look forward to seeing both of us evolve and seeing what happens with Capchase in the next coming months.
I can't wait, Daniel. I've been following SetSchedule, and it's amazing what you guys are doing. So keep going, and yeah, I'm so proud to be considered a partner of the company.
Well, you are, and you as well. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you. Bye, Miguel.